Hello, everyone. Today we'll be talking about Ice, chapters 13 through 15. Last class, we noted that the narrator seems to want the woman and the world to be in crisis. If they are, he can tell himself he has to save them. He can tell himself a story in which he is a hero to the woman and someone involved in the fate of the planet. In this final section of the novel, I think we see how little the narrator's actions, as well as the stories he tells himself, really have to do with the woman or the world. Despite what he says, what's important to the narrator isn't the woman or the world, but his sense of himself. In chapter 13, the narrator encounters the warden again, and tells the warden he left the woman behind in the country not yet affected by the ice. The warden is angry at him, and the narrator says, "At that moment I was more concerned with him, linked to him so closely, as if we shared the same blood. I could not bear to be alienated from him. Why are you so angry?" I went a step closer, tried to touch his sleeve, but he moved out of my reach. Is it only because of her? I could not believe this. The bond between him and myself seemed so strong. Just then she was nothing to me by comparison, not even real. We could have shared her between us. I may have said something of the kind. His face was carved in stone, his cold voice hard enough to cut steel. He was thousands of miles away. As soon as I can make time, I shall go and fetch her, and then keep her with me. You won't see her again. The narrator recently abandoned the woman without any real feelings. But the moment the warden becomes angry with him, the narrator cannot bear to be alienated from him and suggests they share the woman. As we've discussed before, the warden is simultaneously the narrator's enemy and also the person he wants to become. The warden is a powerful authority figure who has previously held the woman captive and who is confident he can hold her captive again, and who is also using the climate crisis to advance his political career. More than anything else, the narrator seems to be trying to convince himself and us that he is a figure like the warden. That is, I think, what is most important to him. The story he is telling in this novel is really the story of his attempt to become the warden. That he might, instead, be someone who disgusts the warden terrifies him. After the warden's men beat him, the narrator makes what seems to be almost a literal attempt to become the warden. He breaks into the home of a military official who resembles the warden, shoots him, puts on his clothes, steals his car, and drives across the country's border as patrol cars chase him. I accelerated, vaguely recalling the warden's story of crashing a frontier barrier as the car burst through the obstruction like tissue paper. The narrator is here living out his fantasy of being the warden, and I can't think of a moment in this novel when he appears to be happier. The chase had a bracing effect on me. Single-handed, I had defeated the organized force which had been used against me. I was stimulated, as if I had won a fast and exciting game. At last I felt normal again, my old self, no longer a despairing traveler in need of help, but strong, independent, powerful. You might wonder if the woman or the fate of the planet were ever really important to him at all. He says he feels as if he had won a fast and exciting game. He's done many terrible things in this novel, but was any of it more than a game to him? Was the only thing that mattered to him winning? Being a winner, like the warden seems to him to be? He seems to use the climate crisis to turn the world into a kind of giant playground for himself. Suddenly, I was on the last lap of the journey. In spite of difficulties which had seemed insurmountable, my objective was almost in sight. I was pleased with my achievement and with myself. I did not think about the killing involved. If I had acted differently, I should never have got here. In any case, the hour of death had only been anticipated slightly. Every living creature would soon perish. The whole world was turning toward death. Already the ice had buried millions. The survivors distracted themselves with fighting and rushing about, but always knew the invincible enemy was advancing, and that wherever they went, the ice would be there, the conqueror, in the end. The only thing was to extract what satisfaction one could from each moment. This is a kind of narcissistic nihilism. If he tells himself that everyone is going to die soon, the narrator feels he has an excuse to do whatever he wants, to seek nothing but his own satisfaction. The narrator races to the beach house where the woman is currently living, as if he's trying to beat the warden to her. But when he arrives and the woman seems to be living a peaceful life, he is angry. Her apprehension vanished. She showed relief. Her manner became quite different. Suddenly she seemed self-possessed. I was familiar with the air of confidence and independence she could assume when people or circumstances made her feel secure. She spoke casually, acted as though my return had been planned and expected, pretended there was nothing unusual about the situation. It was annoying, after all I had been through. I knew it was meant to make me feel small. Under the coat she was wearing an expensive-looking gray suit I had not seen, which had evidently been made to measure, so she had not been short of money. To see her looking attractive and well-dressed for some reason added to my annoyance. The woman seems to be content living in this house on this beach, in no need of the narrator or anyone, and this makes the narrator feel small. And in retaliation, he assaults this woman whom he has spent the entire novel telling himself he's been trying to save. In the final pages of the novel, there's a strange turn of events, though. The narrator seems to change, and for the better. As he drives away with the woman in the stolen car, he says, "Catching a sidelong, suspicious glance, I felt myself justly accused. After the way I had treated her, suspicion was all I deserved. She could not know that I had just discovered a new pleasure and tenderness. I asked if she was hungry. She shook her head. I produced some chocolate from the food parcel, offered it to her. No chocolate had been available for civilians for a very long time. I remembered she used to like this particular brand. She looked at it doubtfully, seemed about to refuse, then suddenly relaxed, took it, thanked me with a timid and touching smile. I wondered why I had waited so long to be kind to her, until it was almost too late." The narrator appears to have a moment of self-reflectiveness here, for the first time. He feels himself justly accused by the woman. He acknowledges that he deserves her suspicion, and he suddenly wants to be kind and tender and regrets that it's taken him so long to behave this way toward the woman. The novel seems to end in a moment of refuge and reconciliation, with writing that, relative to the rest of the novel, is almost beautiful. Outside, there was only the deadly cold, the frozen vacuum of an ice age, life reduced to mineral crystals. But here, in our lighted room, we were safe and warm. I looked into her face. It was smiling, untroubled. I could see no fear, no sadness there now. She smiled and pressed close, content with me in our home. Can we trust the narrator here? Does he finally understand how needlessly cruel he's been? Does he finally see that all this time he's really been more concerned about himself than the woman? Is he now finally actually focused on the woman's happiness? Two details should make us uneasy. The narrator thinks to himself, however the end came, we should be together. I could at least make it quick and easy for her. To make it quick and easy for her means, I think, to kill her. This is a fantasy about a mercy killing. It would also be one last act of violence against her, one last assertion of his control over her life. We should also take note of the novel's last words. I drove at great speed, as if escaping, pretending we could escape, although I knew there was no escape from the ice, from the ever-diminishing remnant of time that encapsulated us. I made the most of the minutes. The miles and the minutes flew past. The weight of the gun in my pocket was reassuring. What reassures the narrator, finally, is a weapon, a means to demonstrate his capacity for violence, his power. The world might be coming to an end, but I suspect, in ice, nothing has really changed.